Another thing for anybody scared of making the commitment to get married is you're afraid you make the wrong choice. You are afraid you marry the wrong person. Or even if you marry the right person, you're afraid that along the line he becomes the wrong person for you. Hi, welcome back to my channel. It's been a long minute. Hi, my name is Daiki Antonio. If this is your first time seeing this video, seeing me on your screen, it means that you don't know about my channel. So you're welcome. It's good to have you here. If you have already seen or been following me since I came back to YouTube last year, 2024, it's good to have you back. This episode, I'm going to tell you what I'm going to be talking about shortly, but it's about love, it's about marriage, it's about relationships, and I'm saying this from a single girl's perspective, but I mean, I would love to hear from the married people in the comments. And I'm going to be talking about marriage. And I'm talking about this from the perspective of a single girl because I'm literally at that point where a lot of my friends, a lot of my colleagues, a lot of my people are literally like getting married. They've been like back to back to back to back. It didn't start this year. Some have been married for like 2 years, some have been married for like 3 years. That's literally the season I think my year batch or my age mates are in. Some are navigating parenting at this point. Some are navigating married, like life as a married person. And then there's me, a lot of people like me, rather, that are still navigating their singlehood. About 2 or 3 weeks ago, sometime early September, I was at one of these weddings I had mentioned back to back to back when I heard a conversation going on. I'm going to say this that for anybody who is afraid or scared of making that commitment to saying I do to somebody for life, this video is actually for you because I think that's what making a lot of people angry, bitter, hateful, vengeful about marriage, the whole marriage institution. Because let's be honest, marriage has really had a bad PR in our day than any other generation. You just need to follow any unnecessary blog that is not edifying. You find that somebody is telling their story, they're asking you to keep them anonymous, they want to know what the public has an idea. Sometimes not even married people, even relationship people. So it's like a lot of people are like, you know what, let me just stay single. I mean, there's nothing wrong with me being single, but this is why I want to sit down and tell you not just my truth. I think the truth of what it is that God designed marriage to be and how it actually should function. I had to sit with this girl and advise her from my perspective about her fear, about her scare of marriage. I think the first thing I'll tell her is your your fear is valid. However, you don't need to sit in that fear for long. There are a lot of people who didn't grow up in a healthy family system. So a healthy family system where father was emotionally and physically present, mother was emotionally, physically, mentally, financially present. And so they had that ideal family system that is something you normally look up to. You have father present, you have mother. Not a lot of people had that. Thankfully, that was my experience. I had both parents in my life. Growing up, even as an adult, I still have them, for which I'm always grateful for. But not everybody had like that. I've had friends who probably along their journey they lost their dad, their parents got divorced, or probably they have step parents now, and so the relationship is not really as friendly, as cool as you'd expect it to. And I think that's the reality for a lot of people, a lot of young people. First things first, you need to understand that as a result of that unhealthy system or that unhealthy family you grew in, you are likely to hold half the trauma in you. Like you are likely to experience trauma, literally, except like intentionally you were forced out of that system as a child and you were taught not to accept it as your reality, or you saw other examples outside of what you had in your home, and so you've made up your mind that that is not going to be your example. You realize that the story is different for you. Fear is valid. However, knowing that the Bible talks about fear, love casting out fear. It means that true love really doesn't have fear in it. Anything that is of godly love literally doesn't have fear. So that fear that is holding you back from seeing marriage as something beautiful needs to be worked on. Or it could be trauma disguised as fear because of things you've had in the past. Also know that there are good people, very good people out there. I'm grateful to have a lot of them in my circle. I'm grateful to have a lot of them as people I interact with. If you've identified the trauma, what you're going to do next is ask yourself, what am I going to do differently that I wouldn't hasn't been done already? So for somebody who's had a bad experience with their parent, you'd ask yourself, when I become a parent, what am I going to do differently with my children that I don't pass that trauma down? However, healing is not linear. Healing is not instant. Healing is a process. You never truly heal. You heal to a point, but you still heal through a lot of things. I remember when I made the video about journaling, I spoke about how it helped me heal. I'm still in that healing process, but at least I'm 80% there, I'm 70% there, I'm 60% better than I used to be, right? That's the thing. You need to heal from the trauma. Like, nobody can do that for you. I mean, a therapist can help you, a counselor can help, but you need to be the one. Secondly or thirdly, I think you need to forgive whoever hurt you, whoever caused the pain, whoever caused the trauma. They may have done it knowingly, they may have done it unknowingly, but forgiveness is key. It's the only way you can release yourself also from the pain. By holding on to the pain, you are hurting yourself. I mean, you can forgive them and decide that you don't want to be in close proximity with them. You don't necessarily have to have conversations with them, but forgiving them is important for your own health. When it comes to people who are dealing with fear of settling down, I think I did a poll, and the majority of the responses I got was saying, I'm afraid that when I marry this person, he will change. He's not going to be the same person I met. And let's be honest, people do change, not just in marriage, but generally as life would, you go through life, you will definitely change. There are some habits that become better. There are some things you do that make you worse, and the change is constant. The change should be expected. However, I think the idea that you want the same image or the same person all through your life is really just a fiction of your imagination. The person doesn't have to change for the bad. Yes, there are instances where people become worse off when they get married, but it doesn't mean that those things weren't there before. It could just be that you were not paying attention. And so, like some of the pastors or even counselors would say, everything people complain about after marriage was literally there before marriage. It's just something you both need to sit there and ask yourself. But I think that perception that the person is going to change, and you're afraid, or even yourself, you're afraid that that change is going to affect your relationship in any way. One of the things I hear a lot, and that's what's keeping people single, because they don't want that change, and they're not sure how that change is going to affect them. A lot of things. I'm like, life is full of changes. Like, you are not the same person you were as an 18-year-old. You're definitely not the same person you were as a 15-year-old. So obviously some things about you have changed. That's the same way if you're in your 20s now, when you're probably in your 40s, your priorities, your attention, your goals, your ideals, your values will keep changing. Especially values, a lot will stay same, but things like priorities will keep changing. Things like interests would keep evolving, because you are growing, and as growth comes, change is expected. For anybody who is in that space where they're afraid of the commitments, they're afraid of what will happen. Some guys are even afraid that when she gets pregnant and all the body changes and things comes in, I don't think I'm going to love her the same way. I'm like, are you loving her because of her body or because of the person? Like, beyond just the body, what else is there that you're going to like about her? And even if the body does change, because pregnancy does have a lot of effects on women's body, what is it that's going to make you say that I'm still going to love this person for the rest of my life? Those changes are important. However, for the negative ones that maybe were not there before, like I said, the signs are always there. It's probably because when you were not paying attention to, they were hiding it. This is where the Holy Spirit, praying, committing the journey to God, and discernment, as well as having counselors or people you are accountable to, comes in, because at that point they would also help you see some of these signs. Thing for anybody scared of making the commitment to get married is you're afraid you make the wrong choice. You are afraid you marry the wrong person, or even if you marry the right person, you're afraid that along the line he becomes the wrong person. This is why for girls I always say choose somebody not only you can submit to, because submission is biblical, but also choose somebody you actually enjoy spending time with. Choose somebody who, if the chips are down, can be there for you. If the chips are up, can also be there for you. But inherently, aside choosing somebody you can submit to, choose but things you can easily tolerate. So you know how people say they have pet peeves, they have things that annoy them. Ask yourself, if that thing he does annoys you, ask yourself, if it's somebody I'm married, is this something I can do for the rest of my life? There are some things that for girls we are so petty about that we can easily overlook. Something like snoring. I know somebody who said she was not going to marry her boyfriend because the way he snores was annoying. And I'm like, how do you know he's snoring? He said, oh, we want to call one time, and I think he fell asleep on the call on her, and the way he was snoring was a turn off. Snoring, something that you can get earphones, headsets, play music, block your ears out and sleep. But then major things like character, major things like values, major things like beliefs are things that you shouldn't ask yourself if you can tolerate or you can negotiate with. Those are things that are huge. Even money decisions, if you both can't align on a lot of things, from money to family to children to parenting, you're gonna have to ask yourself, am I really gonna do this with this person? Sometimes that fear of I'm gonna make the wrong choice is stemming from a place of humanness, not a place of faith per se. Because if you really trust that God knows, God understands, God guides, and God loves, you'd realize that He will definitely not lead you the wrong way, and He'll definitely not lead you in the wrong path. So you need to just do it. I think you just need to have a lot of faith and do it with God in choosing the right person. Doing it with God doesn't mean God will be the one to tell you that my son, or my daughter, this is the person you marry. No, it doesn't have to be that dramatic. Do you get the drift? It has to be those things. And sometimes we are all looking for that confirmation, that dream, that sign that he really is the one. It doesn't really have to be big or grand. Sometimes it just has to be you both are align on certain things, you both agree on certain values, you both agree on certain ideologies. I don't know, but I feel like this generation we make a lot of things to some way. Like some of the things that we really stress about, I'm like, you people are not, it's either you people are not really ready to settle, or even if you are ready, you're all not serious with yourselves. It's one of those things. For anybody with that fear or scare that you'd marry the wrong person, I think if you've not started praying to your marriage at this point, I think I started this whole journey of praying into my marriage, my children, everything when I was in uni. I should have started, if I knew this earlier, I should have started probably from SS, and keep this in mind that God knows best. Like, God knows what's good for you. And if you walk with God, if you do this with God, just do it with God. I think that's the summary of everything I'm trying to say. I don't think I want to talk more than this. Last but not the least, for anybody still having fear because of not being ready, I think your fear is valid. However, what's not making you ready? And let's forget age, because there are people who are in their 30s, in their 40s, but they still think and act and behave like children. So let's put age aside. Maturity has to do with the mind, maturity has to do with the heart, maturity has to do with not just the body, but the mind and the heart. How matured are you in your mind? Like, what are the things you think about? What are the things that take preeminence in your life? When you wake up, what's the first thing that you are thinking about? What's the thing that keeps you up at night? So the kind of conversations you have, the kind of emotional, how emotionally intelligent you are, tells a lot about your maturity, tells a lot about yourself, your person. If you are like 25 and you still have a mindset of a 16-year-old, I'm sorry, but I don't think you're really ready to settle down. For somebody like that, you need a lot of growing up to do. Growing up in terms of your mind, growing up in terms of your spirituality, growing up in terms of faith, finance. If you are not ready, people who have the opinion that I'm not just afraid of I just don't want to be married, and so that's why they just left themselves out of this whole marriage conversation. There's something I always ask myself: is this what God wants, or is this what I want? Because at the end of the day, if your journey is about pleasing your Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, you would realize that He had a purpose for you before you were born on this earth. He knows your end from your beginning. He knows where you're supposed to go. Likewise, even though God has a perfect will, there are things that will not happen as He planned, because man has free will, man has a choice to make, man has a decision to make at the end of the day, and God really respects those choices. I mean, He will not come and be meddling in things that you've not asked Him to meddle in. So things like, I don't want to be married, but ideally maybe God's calendar or God's book, you're supposed to be a mother raising and nurturing the next generation of faith-filled believers, and you are saying that you don't want to be married. Obviously, it would mean that that mandate of raising faithful believers will be taken from you and given to somebody else. It doesn't mean that at the end of the day you will still not account for how you lived your life or the choices you make. You will still make it, but like literally just ask yourself, is this a decision I am making out of selfishness, or is a personal decision I'm making out of purpose? Because if it's not aligned to purpose, it's fruitless. That their fear for really not getting married or not wanting to be married is because, when you're single, like right now, you have a lot of freedom. You can go places at any time. You can do anything you like. You can sleep however you like. If you live alone, you can eat whatever you like. You don't have to think about somebody else. You don't have to take permission from anybody. Even if you live with your parents, you still take permission from them or tell them. I guess some things that you just have freedom and sense of independence of yourself off. So you think that marriage is going to restrict you, marriage is not going to allow you have that freedom, it's not going to give you that breathing air space. I get it, makes sense. However, if you really marry somebody who understands, somebody who also is not so, that's why I said the person you marry, like, God, how do I say this again? I'm trying, I forget my dramatic self, but forget the drama. But essentially what I'm trying to say is, you need to really marry somebody, like I said, somebody you know that can handle certain things about you. Because I know people who are married who still have the freedom to go places, travel here, do this, do that, and they are not restricted. I mean, you still have to tell your husband you're going here. You need to let your spouse know that this was happening with you today. This was happened at the market when you went, like those things. But it doesn't mean that you lose yourself. There's somebody you tell about your life. There's somebody you tell about your day. There's somebody. It doesn't have to be like an elderly person. Sometimes it could even be your peer, it could be a best friend, it could be a close friend, it could be a sister, a family member, a cousin, a brother. You're submitting to that person indirectly. So why do we find it weird that when we marry, we are losing our independence, we are losing ourselves? I mean, there are some of these reasons, they don't really make sense to me, because if you really, 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 really sit down, aside the people with trauma and the people who are not ready, I think every other thing is just sort of an excuse to just want to opt out of marriage. To just want to say that they are valid. I'm not saying, don't, please, I'm not invalidating how you feel, or I'm not invalidating what you are going through, but I'm just saying that for anybody in that space that's thinking that marriage is gonna limit me, it's not gonna give me freedom, I'm not gonna be independent, like I have to put my money together with my husband, his money, our money, that kind of stuff. I cannot spend money anyhow. Listen, it's important who you choose, it's important who you select, it's important who you submit to, because if that person is correct, if that person makes sense, if that person is smart, and you both, you know how like minds meet and they're like, do you get it? I feel like these are just excuses to stay single, or even if you're dating, to keep the person you're in a relationship with hanging. Then for the guys, they have the opinion that they're not ready for marriage because they've not made all the money, they need to reach a certain level of status so that they can give their girl the kind of wedding she wants. Even if you start planning from now to like 2 years time, you will still not have all the money you need to get married. So why not get married now? Why are you waiting for like to make 500k, 200k to spend it? In fact, it doesn't even make sense to me why you want to spend all your money on one day. I know people say, oh, it's just the one day in your life, it's your big day, it's the most happiest day ever. And if you're now starting life, you're in your 20s and you want to do wedding with a budget of 100,000, I'm sorry, but why are you spending 100,000 on one day's event? It doesn't really make sense to me. I think for some guys, they just use that as an excuse to keep the person waiting. Because if it's truly a money problem, for some it's just an excuse. Some have genuine reasons. But all in all, you guys should sit there and just have those conversations. Because I wonder what people are talking about these days. Oh yeah, I get to you have to have fun conversations, you have to have games. But I mean, there are times you also sit down and have these conversations to know where you're headed. So that if you're not going in the same route, you don't waste each other's time. But I think that these are conversations you both need to have. These are things you both need to talk about. And it's not something you just sweep under the carpet of, oh, we'll do that later. Because I know girls, you are annoyed that he's done this thing. You will not say it. You are sweeping it under the carpet, come back to you later. Meanwhile, the later things you say you keep coming back to, you never come back to it. Guys who are of the opinion that the reason why they are afraid or scared of marriage is because they've not made all the money, they are not ready to take up somebody's daughter. I think that for making all the money, you never really make it as a single person. Go and ask anybody who is married. So the favor that you're looking for to make more money is when you get married. For the people who are not ready, please, if you are still in your early 20s, please start getting ready, because life doesn't wait for anybody. So just ensure that even if you're not ready for marriage, just be ready for life, ready for anything that growing up comes with, because adulthood is not talking about a lot, but it's a whole experience. So if I've said anything that makes sense to you and you agree with me, please drop a comment for me. If you've been married and you had some of these fears and there were things you did intentionally to get out of the fears and are enjoying your marriage, please share them in the comments authentically. Let the single people know what they are missing out for not being married. For those truly saying, for the guys, I really want married men to share their perspective about this whole money thing. Because literally, the reason why a lot of people are not married is because there's no money. But I don't think you need a lot of money to marry. If you get even, can you do wedding with 20,000? Somebody should just let me know in the comments. Can you do wedding with 20,000? Please let me know. How much does it cost to get married in 2025? If you've had your experience, if you've been married recently, I don't know how long ago you've been married, please just drop it in the comments. I bring this video to an end. Please, if you enjoyed anything I said, if you like anything I shared, you found anything I said useful and you're going to try, please let me know in the comments. And also share this video with somebody you know you've had this conversation with that's scared of marriage. Let them know what I think they need to hear. Or if you agree with some of the things I said that they need to hear, please share with them. Let them also have the insights to it. And subscribing, I want us to get to 350 subscribers before the end of 2025. So I know we can all do it. The goal this year was to do 300 subscribers, but now that I'm gradually finding my mojo to getting back to YouTube content, let's do 350. It's a big challenge. We have 3 months to go. As at the time I'm recording this is September, so we have 3 months to go. I want us to get to 350. We can do this. So I'm counting on you guys. See you in my next video. Bye. So you don't need a lot of money. You don't need a lot of money to marry. I nearly bought. If not, it would have been a disaster. And then